What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Big TCG Show. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe, share the video, leave a comment of what you want. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of the potatoes. I'm your host, Sinclair. So here in the Fab community, we all know what happened at Memphis. Up until recently, it was hearsay unless you were a witness. So I'm going to go ahead and read the statement from Brodie Spurlock himself. That way, there's no, this is what he said, or are you sure? Because personally, for me, I wasn't going to comment until both sides of the story were put out. I get there were a lot of YouTubers who jumped on the story. It was a hot topic, got to make that money, get that ad revenue. But let's get into it. Hey everyone, I've been reflecting a lot on my approach to competitive play and sportsmanship, and I like the chance to share my perspective and learnings. First and foremost, I want to be clear that I have never, ever played slowly to try to cause my opponent to make a mistake, rush through my opponent's window to remember something. However, I have intentionally chosen not to discard to command and conquer, CNC, and pummel until prompted by my opponent. It has bothered me for a long time that the rules allow players to take edges that don't feel right. I've talked to many other competitors over the years to decide which edges are and aren't acceptable. And around 9 months ago, I decided I can sleep well at night if every action I take in tournament meets two criteria. 1, I could explain my complete thought process and intention to a judge without being penalized. My opponent could do the same thing versus me without me losing any respect for them. The problem with the second one, which I didn't fully recognize until the internet gently reminded me, is that I have a competitive personality and don't mind being held to a very strict standard by my opponents, which often isn't reflective of what the greater flesh and blood community wants. With the amount of exposure I receive, I have the opportunity to be a representative of the community and what you all want competitive play to be, and I haven't done a good job of honoring that. I'm sorry to anyone I let down. Going forward, I will stop taking gray area edges that are permitted by the rules, but not social norms, and will do my very best to prioritize being an ambassador of flesh and blood over my win rate. This can be a very difficult line to draw. I'm going to stay on the safe side because I want to hold myself to a higher standard moving forward. But I honestly don't think it's fair to the rest of the aspirational, I'm a little congested, to the other players out there to have to find this line in the sand for themselves. It has always been extremely important to me to win with honor, and I'm only now coming to terms with the fact that I've been doing a lousy job of it. I hope the rules will be updated to eliminate this problem. If all of the discrepancies between what the rules allow and what the community expects are aligned, competitors wouldn't have to stay on guard to protect themselves, and others like me wouldn't have to decide which set of rules to follow. I also want to address slow play, which I believe is a big part of many people's concerns regarding my play. I admit that my speed is not my greatest strength. In the last year, I have been making a serious effort to cut out any slow play that puts my opponent in an unfair situation, namely feeling rushed to make their plays because of the round timer. It's important to me to clarify again that playing slowly has never been an attempt to get my opponent off balance or to cause them to make a mistake. I recognize that many of my turns range from slower than an average player to an unreasonable pace. I have improved my general speed a lot over time, especially since Puckett. Though there are still turns that are too long, while I will continue to self-regulate that balance between maintaining prompt play and thinking through all of the things I want to, The best thing I can do is encourage opponents to tell me if they think my pace is too slow, and if it doesn't improve, call a judge. I will never be offended by this. I love flesh and blood, and I'll do my very best to represent it well. Actions speak louder than words. A detailed account of my game in Memphis for those interested, which I think everybody is. And now that I think about it, I have maybe like 30 seconds at the beginning of that game, but then someone walked in front of my camera and I just got rid of the footage. Anyway, late in the game as Syndra versus Enigma, I punted by not making a resource off my kunai hit, stranding a game-winning dragon arsenal. Stranding a game-winning dragon power in my arsenal. My opponent played and attacked with Miragai, which I took from 16 to 8, then attacked with Command and Conquer with 2 cards in hand, which I knew from the context to be blue and pommel, so a blue and a pommel. I tanked for an extremely long time, most of which, I'm thinking he said I thought for an extremely long time, most of which was me trying to compose myself after the frustrating of punting. I don't think this is an excuse for slow play. During this tank, the judges asked me to make a play and gave me a warning for slow play. I blocked with a Mask of Momentum and Blood Spattered Vest for 3. Then my opponent played Pommel. I paused after the Pommel, not long enough to be considered slow play or a tank. I finished my train of thought from blocks about which card to discard and the sequencing of my turn. As we were writing down my life total from 8 to 1, the head judge interrupted to give a general reminder about the pace of my play. I was aware of the Command & Conquer and Pummel effects and waiting for my opponent to mention them. We finished confirming life and my opponent cleared up and drew 4 cards. Then I played Oath of Loyalty. He declared no blocks. We confirmed that his Miragai was preventing it, and Miragai went to the graveyard. As I was playing my second attack, the floor judge looked through my opponent's graveyard and asked whether we had resolved the triggers, which a judge is not supposed to do for most infractions that would receive caution penalties, including mistrigger. I told this to the head judge. The judges went and talked. Then they came back and said the game would continue with no triggers. My opponent appealed the ruling, but it was sustained and I won the game. So, ladies and gentlemen, and binary pals, I know a lot of you are pissed. I see the pitchforks coming in the comment section on YouTube and Facebook and Discords. My first thought is, after going over the rules, LSS has to fix this hole. Les has to fix this hole. If you don't, lesser known players, or not lesser known, players who aren't as well known will take advantage of the situation. So I expect them to fix it. I will point out that in other games, not saying that Les will do this, and I don't think they will. What he did would commence a suspension or a ban, depending on the company. But due to the fact that this is a gray area, and if you miss your triggers and you don't say anything and your opponent doesn't say anything and you keep going, it is what it is. So, that being said, if your opponent is playing really slow, call judge. For more experienced TCG players, we all know to do that. We always do that. For newer players, call a judge. It's better to not end up as Brodie's opponent in this situation, but to call a judge and get that person to move faster. The memes and everything, I get people are upset. I really do. I just want to say, if you're watching Brodie, I commend you. I have respect for you for coming out and telling your side of the story and taking the initiative to show where you were wrong and take responsibility for that. There are a lot of people in this world who do not take accountability for what they do. So I commend you for that. To Brodie's opponent, I'm sorry that happened to you. I know it must be frustrating that happened. I expect you to be on edge from here forth when it comes to your triggers. I also would like to say that I'm glad to realize that the judges were on their toes. I've seen a lot of posts where people were talking bad about the judges, making it seem like they were best friends with Brodie. I went and talked to a lot of the judges, and I will say this. They did a good job, and a lot of them were tired halfway through the day. There were some judges who kind of had to lean towards the table because they've been on their feet all day. So to the people who want to hate on the judges, say that they're slack, no, they did a phenomenal job. That's why I went around the entire event fist pumping all of them saying, good job, just to give them that emotional boost that they might need due to all the different rulings. I had to call judge 10 times myself because I didn't understand some of the rulings of the new cards. So we're going to see if LSS edits the rules. If not, everybody be on your toes. If they do, thank you, LSS. Thank you, Mr. White, for handling the situation properly. Now, in the comment section, let me know what you think below. I expect you guys to not act like the other TCG communities and to keep it civil, but in case you don't, just make sure to tone it down. Until then, have a great day.